Introducing Recorded Content, a podcast for small, scrappy B2B marketing teams who want to get the most out of podcasting. In each episode, we capture stories from industry experts and podcasters. Listen in and uncover what it takes to launch, run, and grow a successful B2B podcast. Check out and subscribe to the show on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. Let's jump in.
Hey, this is Justin. I'm the co-founder of Motion and your host for this episode of Recorded Content. Recorded Content is brought to you by Motion, a done-for-you podcast agency for small, scrappy B2B tech marketers. Today, I have the one and only, my friend Gary Vaynerchuk. We're going to talk about the value in repurposing from pillar content. We'll talk about his strategy behind his NFT launch and really just dig into the value of video, podcasting, and more. Gary is a treat to talk to, and I can't wait. Enjoy. All right, so one of the biggest problems that I see with podcasting is that folks would rather publish more episodes than to publish great episodes, maybe less number of episodes themselves, but publish episodes with really nice repurposed content across different channels. And I know the reason is because the creation of other types of content is hard. Video content, long form writing, that list goes on. If you can just record more audio and put it out there, put out 1 or 2 episodes per week, maybe you'll get the traction you're looking for, kind of the if you build it, they will come kind of mentality. But in a 40-minute podcast episode, 30 minutes, 50 minutes, whatever it may be, so much meat is left on the bone if you're not creating repurposed content, video content, written content out of those episodes. So I'm curious from your perspective as a big proponent of that, why do you think that people would rather create more pillar content from podcasts, so episodes, than take the time to repurpose an episode across various channels?
Lack of education. It's like a wild kind of like quick answer. I think it's because people don't realize what you just said, and obviously what I've been proponing my whole career, like the contextual creative and the distribution of other channels is consumed more and is stronger at building awareness for a podcast. I think that most people struggle with strategy. Just, it's just the truth. It's funny, I'm loud and high energy and all these things, but I think people, I myself don't beat my chest of hey, I'm smart. I have good strategies. It's not that I've just worked hard for the last 25 years. Right now, this is the only thing I've done in the last 2 days outside of my NFT drop. I'm in the middle of fixing bugs, but I wanted to keep my word and do this podcast with you.
And I appreciate it. And we're going to get to your NFT in a minute. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about your strategy there.
But where I'm going with that is in the last 20 hours, I've sold $15.5 million worth of NFTs. That is ridiculously hard, but it took 6 months of a lot of work and thinking. And I did 10 things wrong, just. Now I know, because the market is the market is the market. By the way, in our common interests, I can't wait because now I get to buy my Jordans and Charizards that I've got on the side to off this execution. But I think that people are very confused about strategy. And I love your opening question. What a strong start to this podcast. The answer to your question is because they don't know. They haven't seen my white papers. They haven't followed 500 other people that thoughtfully understand this. They haven't listened to your podcast and asked when you ask this question. They just don't know. It's unbelievable all the things I've learned about health and wellness and science and healthcare and things people actually just don't know. You know this because there's a couple areas you're strong in knowledge, a couple areas I feel like I'm strong in knowledge. You always can tell when somebody just doesn't know. And that's it.
And I think there's this common confusion as to what you should create out of pillar content or what even is pillar content. So let's take a quick step back there, and to give our audience a little bit of background, how would you define pillar content?
Think of it as the long form, meaty, whether it's a 5,000 word article, whether it's a 45-minute podcast, whether it's a 1 hour show, it could be 15 minutes. It's not just on length, but it's the meaty thing. And then, it becomes the thing that you break down into highlights. It's almost like, let's talk sports because I know we love it. It's the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the highlights on SportsCenter and on social media and all that brings awareness to the post game of it, which in theory becomes a flywheel. Because if you're oh my God, Ronald Acuna's insane, or oh, Toddy, Ohtani, right? I've been so busy. Guy's out of his mind right now. I like want to watch an Angels game. I only from the content that is made from the pillar content. I didn't watch the whole Ohtani game. Yeah. I saw the 500-foot bomb or the 10Ks. And oh my God, and so that's how I think about this, right? There may be one good exchange you and I have here that's 39 seconds that you feel is like the thing. You put that on LinkedIn, that's going to be the thing that gets people to care about you. One of the reasons I even wanted to do this is because I like you. And I was like, look, he's going to be able to clip this because I know you get it. I see how you move. And it feels nice for me that will help you book future guests and build what you're building.
Exactly. And I think that there's this common misconception that people think is like, you know, you need to just keep creating pillar content, and they spend so much time and energy getting new guests, getting new, putting out new episodes, clipping their episodes, when they could take that same energy and squeeze so much more out. And I don't know about you, Gary, but as much as I want to watch every time Ohtani pitches or every time Ronald Acuna gets up to bat, I don't have the time for it. So I have to tune in to the highlights. And that's what I want a lot of times when I'm consuming content as well.
You couldn't have said it better.
So let's get into a real world example of you using and repurposing content all over the place. So you've been in the process of launching your NFT VeeFriends, and I want to break it down for the audience, the pillar content that you've used there, the repurposed content, how you're using it to help community. But the first question, before we get into the actual marketing strategy behind it, and I know it's a loaded question, but I have to set the stage. Please. What is VeeFriends?
VeeFriends is an intellectual property. You know, one thing, you know, again, we connected over sports cards. In my career as a teenager, as a child, Star Wars, wrestling figures. These are toys now. Star Wars, early 80s, into wrestling by 1984. A hint of G.I. Joe, a hint of Transformers. There was a cartoon called Mask. It was like 2 vehicles in one. That got 5 minutes of my time. My friend was into He-Man. I was another friend was into Thundercats. I was a little to the side. And then I went into baseball cards. Then with baseball cards in 93, I smelled the moment that I was like, uh-oh, it's going away, and saw a huge explosion in comic books and toys and went heavy for that for 5 years. I loved Alf. I loved Smurfs. I was an 80s kid, so we had Saturday morning cartoons. I'm a byproduct of intellectual property. So just in my like real world, like Vayner and all that, I talk a lot about I was going to buy nostalgic IP, you know, IP, intellectual property, RoboCop, like some small show on Netflix, like stuff like that. Nickelodeon, excuse me, from the 80s, 90s, or things like that. Inspector Gadget, always on my mind. So what VeeFriends is my version of that. I'm building my own universe, my own, you know, kind of Smurfs, Scooby-Doo, but I'm using NFT technology to establish the characters, and then film, television, video games, action figures. I'm building my world, and it's fucking amazing. I'm out. Baseball cards and garage sailing are the two things that kind of put me in that place. But this building of these characters feels so different and exciting. Like, dude, just when I send you a box of the trading cards of this VeeFriends in like 3 years, when I get, you know, you don't know what that's going to feel like. Or do a Panini sticker deal with the, you know how they have the Panini booklets and stickers for the kids. Anyway, that's what I'm doing. And I'm doing it in a new technology, mainly because I have to learn the technology. Just for example, as you know, with sports cards, I studied for 6 months. I went to the National in Cleveland incognito. I read blowout forums. I fought you and 100 other people on Twitter and got educated, and then felt like I could say something. And then of course, you know, especially now, same thing, by the way, literally the same thing that happened with me in sports cards is happening with me in NFTs. Oh, you want to come here now? You don't really care. You know, all the fucking shit that I have to deal with.
You're giving a hard time, Gary?
Go figure. But
no way.
But I'm really excited about it. And for everybody listening here, non-fungible tokens will be a big part of your life. Have you jumped into the top stuff yet or no?
I haven't jumped in, although right now I'm kind of where you are, but you're not where you are. You're in it. I'm where you may have been before, which is I'm kind of still observing. I love talking to my friends about it. It's like I'm kind of the knowledgeable person, even though I'm not necessarily in it,
that's what
but
happens.
following very closely. And I know that once that switch gets turned, there's probably no turning back from there for me, just because of my personality of really diving into something head first. But yeah,
and by the way,
watching very closely.
Let me tell you, it's a both world. For everybody who's listening that's in marketing or other things, we're obviously geeking out on our favorite common, hobby, sports cards. It's going to be both. Like the physical helps the digital helps the physical. I think a lot of people, if you're listening right now and you're like, no, I don't want NFTs to be the way concert tickets are sold. I'm in the business of selling paper tickets or QR codes or whatever it is. Anytime you fight technology, you lose. And anytime you think it's a winner take all game, you lose. Yeah. This is going to help each other.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought, and that's kind of what I've been saying to people, which is like, there is so much room to play that I don't think it has to be an either or. I've got my group chats with friends. They like to run their Zed run horses, and then we talk about the basketball prices and what have you, and it's all kind of falling under this same collectibles umbrella.
And to me, it's really wild because I love them both, and I'm like, oh, this is epic. It's like you zig when everyone zags, right? Like I'm like, man, if everyone's over focused on NFTs compared to cards right now, this is my chance to buy some more of the things that I think are iconic. The LeBrons, the Jordans, the 61 Fleers. It's really fascinating to watch the waves.
And I want to take so we've talked a little bit about the background on NFTs. Now let's bring this back to a little bit of actually marketing strategy.
Please.
So I've seen you putting out snippets of content all over social. I've been following since you've been drawing for the last, 3-4 months. Yep. I've seen you on interviews on CNBC and other places. And I know you put out some longer, kind of nicer videos describing the project. Where did you even get started with what your promotion strategy was going to be for VeeFriends?
Great question. I'm very intuitive. I have a lot of strategy. I know you want to build awareness. I know how to do that from a creative standpoint, using myself as a vehicle or understanding the creative that can bring, it's all about bringing value. Like one thing that I think, listen, again, not here to toot your horn, but one of the reasons I'm allocating my time to you is, you like me, everyone has their own communication style. But when you really look under the hood of how you communicate on your Twitter account, you're trying to provide value. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Honestly, the reason, when a lot of people are like, why are you going on with that dude? He's trolling you. I'm like, no, he's not. I'm being serious. I'm like, no, he's not. I think first of all, we don't know each other. He doesn't know every nuance of me, and I don't know every nuance of him, but I can tell the intent on the tweets. They're not, a lot of people use me just to build themselves up. A lot of people do a million different things. I just think you have care about your thing and you're curious. I think it's a strength. I think I'm the same way. So I see that in you. I think about it as bringing value. If you look at the earliest content, it wasn't the seeding of my drawing. I wanted to do that because that was more fun for me, just to see. I was also learning, right? Justin was like consumer, like, am I as decent-ish as I think? Are people gonna be surprised that I can do this? Like, what characters do people like? The stuff that I was really doing is on my blog, my oldest content and the stuff I was sharing is, what is an NFT? Mm-hmm. How do you connect the wallet? Beware of gas prices, like really educating.
Yeah.
A lot of the OGs in Ethereum-based NFTs have hit me up and same shit. Like, oh, I thought you're a piece of shit. You're full of shit. Land grab. Yeah. And then now are like, man, thank you so much. You've put on tens. Same. This same thing that happened in sports cards.
Oh yeah.
You've brought so many people to the dance, and we appreciate that. And I like doing that. First of all, my community, as Gary V, my customers as VaynerMedia and Wine Library, they're your oxygen. Without them, you're dead. I don't understand how people don't realize everything should be, in theory, about them. And then if you're lucky enough to get the financial, the non-financial, whatever it might be, the legacy, the accolades, the likes, whatever one's looking for. So for me, the strategy was heavy education, because literally, before I came on this podcast and the second I hang up in 15 minutes, I'm going to be doing hand-to-hand customer service, Geek Squad. Oh, you have to hold down Command Shift R to refresh your cache because you're not really paying $30,000 in gas that was cached from the night before. Like real shit, just.
And it's something I actually want to talk about. I'm going to jump forward then. So my firm runs another podcast about communities in B2B, and just like community in basically every space from video games to trading cards, online communities are growing. And usually B2B is last on the uptake, but it's B2B has really made its way into online communities. And I know a big piece of VeeFriends for you is about helping the NFT community. What have you seen with the rise in online community?
If you go literally if you go read Crush It and The Thank You Economy, my first 2 books, what have I seen? The validation of something that people thought I was crazy about 15 years ago. You know why though, just right? You know why I won that game, and Alexis Ohana and Kevin Rose and many others. Again, there's hundreds of thousands that were on this train, not me, because it's how humans work in real life, brother. Bro, I literally high five strangers when they wear Jets hats in the middle of New York City. Right? People, book clubs, what movies we watch, look at Comic-Con, right? And then little things like beards. You ever see 2 dudes with super long beards out in public look at each other and give each other the head nod?
Nice.
Exactly. We humans are tribal. Beards, 2 women wearing the same kind of like outfit styles.
Jeeps.
Jeeps is a great one. It's why people wear the clothes they wear. It's associations, watches, sneakers is a big one, right?
Yep.
As I up my sneaker game through the years, like, boy, do they know and the nod. And so what do I think? I think digital's taking over everything, which is why NFTs are so important. Just listen to me. Again, little side note, please keep it in the podcast because everybody needs to hear this. You need to get serious about this. This is going to happen. This is not kinda. This is social media. This is Web 1.0. This is now Web 3. It's here. And the collectible part of your brain is going to help you navigate. Like, you're very built between marketing and collectability DNA to do quite well here. You should really pay attention.
Yeah, I love it.
Get educated.
And you're doing a great job of pushing out a ton of educational content, which is basically what I do in 2 different walks of life. One is here where I'm putting out educational content for podcasters. And then my other walk of life is putting out educational content for collectibles, mainly sports cards. I'm curious about your process. So what goes into when you're making all of your content for what you've been doing with the launch of VeeFriends? Was it one sitting or over a couple of days and you're capturing a ton of video of you drawing?
There was yep, I got it. Great question. There was probably 4 to 5 signature things. There was the 1 week in Malibu where I was like, I'm going to go be an artist and I need to be not distracted and just draw. That was a big one. That was massive. But then outside of that, 7 to 10 meaningful podcasts. For me, podcasts are monsters. I win 3 times. 1, I'm in the point of my career where I'm a big enough name that when I go on podcasts, it's a bump for them, and a smaller emerging one like yours, it becomes the leverage to get other guests. So I'm giving, selfless, and then selfishly, I'm getting a lot of content out of my brain, right? And then I'm able to chop that up and create the micro content that you're referring to. So it's been TV, it's been micro content from TV, blogs, and that very big session, and then a couple of very long live streams with my community. And remember, everyone, you're listening right now. It's like, okay, well, Gary can have 14,000 people show up. I have the videos. They're on the internet when there was 9. I was doing this when there was 9. Justin's doesn't have trillions of people listening to this podcast. He's still gonna have plenty. He's still gonna have plenty of cuts. And when you're coming up the game, the guests are what get you cuts. He's gonna put this on Instagram and Twitter. People are gonna see my face. They're gonna stop. They're gonna be my fans who then become Justin fans. And so for everybody's listening, that's why you got to keep asking. You don't ask, you don't get. Justin asks something of me that I say no to 500 times a day. Oh, by the way, even with how much I like him, and I think everyone can tell that I do on this show, it was probably a 13% chance I was going to say yes. He called me at the right time. By the way, I'm going to ask him right now. It might have not been the first time he asked me. He might have hit me up on Twitter or DM, or it's the second time he emailed me. That happens too. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, and I bided my time too. I also wanted to make sure that it was the right time. And in this situation, you've got something that you want to talk about that at the time I had a feeling I didn't know that I would interview you literally 1 week after your launch. But, it gives us a good opportunity to really dive into a specific initiative that you had just released, and we can talk about the way that you created the content and built around it and what have you. So I really appreciate you coming on. I know you're an extremely busy guy, and as we wrap up here, I do have a couple of questions just maybe around advice. What advice would you give to a B2B marketer on how to leverage long form pillar content to drive marketing strategy?
Give me 1 second, brother. I apologize. I just had an emergency pop-up text. I had to answer. Please ask that again. I apologize. And don't edit that because I think people need to see all the true stuff. Go ahead.
All right. Fair enough. We'll keep it in. So the question was, what advice would you give to a B2B marketer on how to leverage long-form pillar content to drive marketing strategy?
Do what this man's doing here. Do business podcasts or videos or a show, and then chop it up and distribute the living hell out of it on LinkedIn. It works. I don't know what else to tell you. It is literally like I'm giving you the easiest piece of advice of all time. I can't explain to you how well it works. It is literally like eat healthy and work out, and physical things will happen for you over a course of a year. If you do that every day, this is like an apple a day keeps the doctor away. It's a big deal. Please, please, please create a long form show, podcast or video show, or be a guest on a lot of podcasts, chop it up and post it organically on LinkedIn with hashtags around your industry in the post. You will be on the floor stunned how much opportunity it leads to.
Well, that's it. I mean, I think I got what I need there. That's a great spot to end, Gary. Since we're coming up on our time, where do people go to check out more about VeeFriends and stay up to date with what Mr. Gary Vaynerchuk is doing?
Gary VEE is the handle I use on most platforms. And if you butcher Vaynerchuk, it will probably autocorrect in Google. So Gary Vaynerchuk, in there you can find a bunch of stuff. And I'm just flattered and thankful. And I'm very active on LinkedIn for this community. I'm sure you've seen me in stream. I've won that game. So thank you. Just, I root for you. Congrats on all your personal life, great things going on. And thanks for having me on the show.
All right, Gary, thanks again. I really appreciate you spending some time with me today on Recorded Content.